All right, we are live. So, welcome. Tonight we're going to be talking about radiation. I want to get into some germ theory. And of course, we'll talk about solutions. But before I start, I want to issue a disclaimer. I'm going to be touching on some controversial, touchy subjects and giving my thoughts and viewpoints on those things that have almost got me canceled or in trouble or whatever. But we have to continue, and we have to push forward and continue to preach and talk about what's truth and what's real. And so I really want to just present it. I'm just going to start going, and we'll see how this all comes out. But I wanted to issue a disclaimer, because the thing is that if you have your views, and if you've been following me and are different from mine, I'm not necessarily looking for any type of debate or any type of crazy emotion. I really want to present the information, and I think that one of the reasons why I'm doing this now, other than the fact that like these are things that we need to talk about, what I've noticed, and I could be off on this, but what I've noticed is I don't believe, I could be wrong, but I don't believe that YouTube and Facebook, Google, basically big tech, have been censoring in the same way that they were, let's say, 12 months ago. So I think it's going to be safe for me to talk about these controversial things without my video getting censored, without me getting a strike or getting a warning. Because I do want to talk about vaccines. I want to talk about COVID in relation to radiation and germ theory. So, and especially now, it's like Ukraine-Russia war has all the headlines. And then even given the fact that I think what's happened, just in the advent of, podcast superstar Joe Rogan, with all the controversy that he caused with the guests that he had on his show. Obviously, big tech, Google, Facebook, YouTube, they know they're very hip to what's going on. You can't really, in my view, I don't think he can really be canceled or silenced. And it's very popular. I mean, people want to hear about these kinds of things. This really fits under my umbrella in terms of health, and because my thing is more or less solutions. What can we do? I mean, it's one thing, again, I'm not interested in arguing back and forth on whose truth is true. I'm going to present my truth as truth, because I said, was it 3 years ago now? Is it 3 years? It was February 2020, 2 years, I guess. Okay. February 2020, I was doing a retreat. February 2020, I was doing a retreat. And that's when the corona was just hitting. And I was in Jamaica, and I said, it smelled like a hoax. It smelled like a trick. And I said, I'm going to believe it is until it's not. And everything that's happened since then, I know people have died. I know I know, and we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the probable reasons, and I'm going to try to make sense of it all. So if you're watching me, especially for the first time, I just ask you to have an open mind and a kind heart, and not, think emotionally first, especially if you have like strong beliefs. This is my first live stream back. I just had a question on Instagram about the Bitcoin thing. That was my account was hacked. Yes, I got my old Instagram account back. But I still, I have a new Instagram as well. So yeah. So I just wanted to talk about that. I don't, I really don't. I'll be surprised if this video gets like a strike or get a censor. I feel like I just don't. I feel like there's a change, and I mean, we see what's happening in Canada. I mean, people have what they call it, COVID fatigue. If it's the mask, the mandates, all of it is like, people are just fed up. So yes, if you want to buy a copy of my book, a signed copy, I finally got my books in. I shipped out a lot yesterday. If you buy it off Amazon, you won't get a signed copy, but if you buy it from my website, you can Google my website, Kepper's Raw Food Juice Bar. You'll see it on there. I will sign it and ship it to you. I appreciate that. And funny enough, there's a chapter I started writing that book in 2006, and I questioned germ theory. So let's just start there. Well, actually, I'm going to start with my story on because the thing is, like, we're all brought in, most of us are brought into this world, and unless our parents are really conscious, we're taught to fear germs from the very beginning. And I was no different. Now I wasn't like a germaphobe, but we all grow up with the idea that viruses are something that we catch. If you develop sinus issues, congestion, this is something that that you know some pathogen mysteriously entered your body and infected you, and you got sick, right? That's the standard. That's the baseline. And when I was in college, this is like my first few years in college. My girlfriend at the time, and this is when I actually first started experimenting with fruitarianism, raw food. I had just listened to Dick Gregory, rest in power to our to the great Dick Gregory. Yeah, so I had listened to him. He had talked about how man should eat fruits, and it was a paradigm moment for me, because I was like, man, I could see myself doing that. I was 18 at the time, and that's kind of where my journey. That's definitely one of the seed moments of this journey for me. Now 30 years ago. Okay, so I was eating a lot of fruit, basically all fruit at the time. And I remember my girlfriend at the time, I mean, we were very close and very touchy and intimate, and all, it was very, we were like one person. And so she had gotten sick. She was cold and mucus and all of it, and that didn't stop us. And I was basically on my fruit. And I mean, if germ theory was anything valid, like, it would have made sense if I would have gotten sick. not only did I not get sick, my nasal cavity was as clear as it ever been. And at that moment, I started to, it was a shift and said, wow, either, one or two things. Either we don't infect each other, or because most people will say, oh, well, she infected you, but your body was able to deal with it. Right. That's what most of us believe. Um, but at that moment, it was something different that happened to me mentally about the whole idea of how and why we get sick, because she wasn't eating all fruits like I was. And so again, that was a moment for me. Now, moving on, as I getting information as far as you know, reading books on health and nutrition, and experimenting with myself, and eating, going closer and closer to the raw food paradigm. One of the early things that I would hear was that you don't catch a cold, you eat one. And again, it was like, it's like the first time you hear a thing, and the first time I heard that, I was like, I mean, it like, all my spirit was like, truth. That is truth. Not because I looked at a scientific journal, not because of anything, that would need to convince me. It's like there's certain things that when we hear, or at least I hear, and my spirit will tell me, like, that is truth. Because essentially, even if it's not true, right? Even if it's not true, let's just say, let's just take the other side of the argument and say, okay, we actually do catch colds. Our sickness is always responsible for somebody infecting us, or some mysterious thing, either we touched or we breathed, or anything of that matter that comes in and infects us. Versus, like, okay, maybe it was my diet, maybe it was the things in my environment, maybe it was my lack of activity or exercise. See, now, if I'm believing that, if I'm taking that, okay, I was infected, basically it excuses me of all responsibility. Versus, I'm responsible, because the thing is that if I'm taking this, because if I'm taking the stance that, all right, I built this, I created this, I'm taking responsibility. And even if I just happen to be infected, by me just believing, or me taking the stance that, okay, I'm responsible for this, then who is likely more, because again, let's say you got person A and person B, who is likely more able to do something about it? The person who says, you know what, I'm responsible for my sickness. Not my partner, not my coworker, not somebody I just happen to meet, and we breathe the same air. Me, in my body. I had a post a few months ago. I said, you don't catch health, you don't catch disease. We create health through our actions and our habits. We create disease through our actions and our habits. They're really almost one and the same. And it really comes down to the choices we make every day. Everyday choices that we make. Now, it's been interesting because, one of the things that I learned, if I didn't learn anything this past 2 years, one of the things that was really insightful for me to learn was, when you really start to speak truth. I feel like when people hear truth, whether they agree with it or they don't agree with it, if they don't agree with it and it's truth, then that's going to spark some emotion. When I said that, and I can go back in terms of looking at the different things that I shared on, whether it was on social media, my newsletter, etc., or here on YouTube. Again, because the thing is that, coming from our foundation, speaking on germs versus terrain, so, but I want to talk about this truth versus belief, because I feel like, well, I know it's not a feeling, it's if I said, one of the things I said, if I said the sky is black, or no, that's a bad example. If I said the sky is orange, again, no one would be upset. No one would find any kind of reason to have any type of emotion, because we can all look up and see that, okay, the sky is blue, or if it's dark, the sky is black, or whatever. We confirm that with our own experience. But when I talk about things that question, or that challenge your beliefs, if it's truth, it should not incite emotion. With the things that I've challenged, especially when I challenged germ theory, and I've challenged it, like, one of the things that really got me in trouble, especially, it was actually this time last year, it was March 2021, and I posted on Facebook, I posted on IG. I said, the virus is fake, the vaccine is real. And man, probably over 1,000 comments. It got written up in a local popular Washington, D.C. paper, a whole article written up about it. I wasn't looking for that kind of attention. Actually, no. That post was popular, but it wasn't as popular as the one where I really discussed the mask, and I talked about how respiratory diseases are not contagious, and that mask wearing is something that we shouldn't do, and I wouldn't open up a shop as long as we have a mask mandate. And that had gotten a lot of press and a lot of attention. But nonetheless, those were probably my most two, popular posts, notorious even. And the thing is that, when we look at COVID, or whatever disease, we look at, it's like, okay, let's say, for example, okay, because a lot of people were like, well, I know somebody who died, and that's unfortunate. My condolences for everyone who was lost to the supposed COVID virus. However, if we start to really look critically and remove emotion, remove the media hype, remove all of the just really start to filter the noise, because that's what all of this is noise. If we really start to filter the noise and really look critically, first of all, we all know that for the large part, majority of the people who died were the people who had pre-existing conditions. The people who were already toxic, dealing with diabetes, hypertension, overweight. People were elderly. Okay, so the thing is that what was it that if this was not a virus, what was it that sort of pushed them over the edge? Okay, and it didn't affect healthy individuals. It didn't affect children in the same way that it affected people with pre-existing conditions. Because again, if we really start to look at now, I'm not a virologist, but we're going to get into the whole virology, again, but I can read, I am educated, and for as far as I know, there are people on the other side who are quote unquote experts and leaders, and they're not doctors of anything. They don't have any degrees of anything. So again, I'm just a free thinking, critical thinking individual that's presenting an argument. And I just challenge you to, again, remove emotion, remove filters, the media, the noise, all of that. Because what I hope to accomplish this evening is to, just really present uh um really present the information in a way that we can really look and make sense of everything, and in large part present solutions and what we can do as individuals. Okay, so what was it? Well, what is different in our world? I mean, and I mean, it's not hard to figure out that we are electrical beings. And given that we are electrical beings, the main thing that's allowing even this whole thing to happen is technology, is radiation. So we're really kind of segueing into the whole radiation. Now, this comes at a price. For me to sit and I can just talk into my computer, I'm live and people can tune in around the world, and we can talk face to face. There's a price that we all pay to be able to have this type of convenience. Okay, and in 2020 it went to another level, as we all know, the 5G. Now 4G is a problem, 3G is a problem, all the G's are a problem. And the thing is that when we look at, when we take the sum total of all of this, we say that, okay, the radiation is one thing, because it's usually just like with health, right? You're not healthy because you eat good. You're healthy because you eat good. You're healthy because you exercise. You're healthy because you have a positive mental attitude. You're healthy because you get good sleep. You get out in nature. I mean, there's like a list of things that create good health. Sickness works the same way. There's a list of things that create disease and sickness. It's not just because of radiation. And it's certainly not just because of some mysterious virus. I mean, even when we look at a virus, it's like it's something almost that really does not exist. Bacteria is something that exists, but when the whole virus thing, it's almost like they take it and they these scientists they filter it, and they got their microscopes, and they're looking for some type of anything that resembles some whatever. And it's just like these scientists, I mean, what you want to do is research Dr. Lanka. Dr. Lanka is a virologist, a German virologist. Dr. Stefan Lanka, who again a virologist who understands that viruses are really they're just dead inert things that you look at under a microscope. And he offered $100,000 reward to anybody that can prove that measles is contagious. And someone took him on his offer, and it went all the way to the Supreme Court, the German Supreme Court, and they found in favor of Dr. Lanka. So, but there's been countless experiments that have shown one thing versus another thing. I'm sure that people who may be questioning what I'm saying right now could say, "Oh, well, what about this?" And again, I'm not going to go back and forth with people in terms of one versus the other and go back, to show my information versus your information. But I'm going to point to some resources that I have that support what I'm saying. But Dr. Lanka is that event was sort of a definitely a moment, a recently, I don't know exactly, but actually talking about resources, it's talked about in this book here, The Contagion Myth, Why Viruses, Including Coronavirus, Are Not the Cause of Disease. The Contagion Myth by Thomas Cowan, Dr. Cowan. You see that? Thomas Cowan, Contagion Myth. While I'm discussing these books, the other one, this is Goodbye Germ Theory. And this one is really powerful book right here. What Really Makes Us Ill. This is a strong book. You can see how much information, how much research. This book was really well documented, well researched. I mean, we going into vaccines, germ theory. We talking about HIV AIDS. Because when we start to look at viruses, I want to really spend some time. Like, for example, people like you may say, okay, well, what about STDs, right? Sexually transmitted diseases. People get STDs all the time, right? Well, there's the one question I have about that. Okay. Who was the first? Who was the first? There had to be a first person. If a sexually transmitted disease is contagious, who was the first person to catch that sexually transmitted disease? And where did they catch it from? Well, the most logical answer is they developed it. They developed the toxicity that had to express itself through the sexual organ. Now, what's likely to happen, let's say you got person A who first time developing some type of sore or rash or breakout on the genitalia, to then have sex with another person, and then they have that similar reaction. Now, did they pass that virus or that disease to the other person, or did they create some type of irritation? I mean, it is possible. It seems logical. But if person A developed it within their system as an expression of detoxing their body by using that part, that area of the body for it to come out, uh, and or if it was something, let's say orally, like a fever blister, right? And then that person maybe had oral sex with somebody, and then of course, so again, I mean, I guess this is how STDs can spread. Or is it just that that particular person uh used that part of their body, it created irritation, and then the body used that as a chance to express toxicity out of that area. I mean, again, we want to start to really look at these things critically, and ask these types of questions. The other thing, I mean, HIV AIDS, we got to talk about it, because really, I mean, we don't talk about it. I mean, growing up I'm old enough to remember. Some of you may be watching, may not be as old as I am, but HIV AIDS was like, I mean, if it wasn't a pandemic, I mean, they didn't call it a pandemic back then, but it was very, 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 very serious. But here's the thing. You didn't know you had it unless you took a test. You didn't know you had it. I mean, okay, if you got some type of sick, I mean, we all come down with some type of symptoms that express something. It's like, well, you need to take an HIV test. I mean, does it sound familiar? Does it sound like something we're dealing with today? We got to take a test to determine if we're positive. Again, as the conspiracy theorist, I mean, to me, that was the precursor to what we just went through. HIV AIDS. And especially since that, again, viruses are dead, inert substances that are basically filtered from bacteria. And no, I mean, I trust the doctors and the scientists that, again, come out with this type of information. And according to these doctors that I trust, that put their lives on the line, these are courageous, that are going against official narratives. I trust those people. And when they say that a virus has never been proven to be contagious, then that's what I trust as truth. And again, going back to my own experience, just and then just understanding that, again, we're all responsible. If we're responsible for our health, we're responsible for how we get sick, when we get sick. Okay. So going back to, well, let me finish up on HIV AIDS. And they go through it in this book here too. What really makes us ill. That's by Dawn Lester and David Parker. Definitely was not about contagion. If anything, we saw the playbook. And you got to watch. It's actually still on YouTube. Man, it just escaped me, the documentary. It'll come back to me during this time, but you had to take a test. You take a test and you feel fine. Let's say, because I mean, obviously it started as a homosexual disease, right? And then next thing you know, it's like, well, everybody should get tested. And then if you happen to test positive, which again didn't mean that you were sick. And it could also have been a false positive. Once you get that positive test, of course, now you believe that your immune system is about to break down. By the way, shout out to Magic Johnson, who's still around with us, kicking. Supposedly tested positive for HIV back in the late 80s when this thing was a thing. Shout out to him. And we then, of course, people, of course, started taking HIV drugs, which began to break down their immune system and began to, once their immune system broke down, then, they end up dying of pneumonia or dying of some other illness that as a result of taking very toxic HIV drugs. Now, in this case, fast forward 2020, 2021, 2022 with the COVID, that's what I tried to say, look, it's not about the virus. It's not about a dead, inert, mysterious thing that we can breathe or you can pass. Forget social distancing or whatever, or hand sanitizer, another ridiculous practice. So we have to begin to, really look at this thing and understand that it's not about the it's not about anything that they're telling us, because the medicine, the solution, we obviously know the solution was the vaccine, just like the solution to HIV AIDS was AZT. And obviously, mandates and all that, it was just really just horrible. And I really feel for a lot of the people who were forced and felt like they didn't want to lose their livelihood, they didn't want to lose their jobs. And I know a lot of people who fell under that category, and and it was so unfortunate. So because the thing is, like, I even this story, I'll share this with y'all. My own sister, she came down, or she tested positive for COVID. She was very sick. And I've heard that from a lot of people, say, like, look, man, I got sick and I never felt like that. I've been sick before, and this was a sickness like I've never experienced. Well, one thing I say to that right quick, well, we're in, the radiation that we're experiencing is a radiation that we've never had. We got phones that can do just about everything, right? But back to my sister. My sister came down with the COVID, tested positive for COVID. And because she was a public official, her whole family got to test positive. I mean, her whole family had to get tested. And, she's a breastfeeding mother. And if anybody who should have tested positive as well, if this virus is so deadly and so contagious, if anybody that should have tested positive, if she was a positive carrying COVID infector, then it should have been her child who she was nursing, breastfeeding. Of course, you know where this is going. Of course, her child tested negative. If anybody who should have tested positive, it would have been her child. Nonetheless, she was sick, bed rest for a week. I instructed her to basically go on a fast. If anything, it came to me to about the mullion, and the mullion, because she did have difficulty breathing. and she got through it. I've had other family members come down with this multiple times, even. Um, so the thing is like, again, if this thing was so contagious, my own niece would have definitely tested positive for COVID. But of course, she drinking the best stuff on earth, breast milk, electric. And see, and that's what this whole thing is. We got to really discuss electricity. We are electrical beings. Before biology, before chemistry, we are electrical. And if you want to get all conspiratorial, I feel that the powers that be, the medical mafia, understand this more than anyone else. They understand that we're electrical. And being that we are electrical, they want to get toxic metals into us by any means necessary, any way possible. Chemtrails. It's nothing but clouds of aluminum, deodorant, more aluminum, tooth fillings, mercury, vaccines. Not only is aluminum, iron, what other metals are in vaccines? Mercury in a nano size, the nanotechnology, because we're electrical. So we're electrical before we are anything else, before we're biological, before we're chemical. We're electrical. And so understanding this and understanding that we have these EMFs, electrical magnetic fields all around us, that's creating free radicals. It's creating toxicity. What's the solution? What are the solutions? There's never one thing that's bad and there's never one thing that's good. It's all cumulative. So, when people would get emotional with me and say, COVID is real. My aunt died. My father died. I'm sorry for your loss. But you can't prove that this was from a virus, number one. You can't prove that. You're only going off what the hospital told you or what your doctor told you. Can't prove that. But see, if you started asking questions, then it's like, trust me, you would have gotten some pushback. It's never one thing. But again, whatever supports the narrative. And the narrative this was a whole huge marketing campaign for vaccines. Now, the one thing, let's say you may be watching this and you're pro-vaccine, or you've taken the vaccine, whether willingly or unwillingly. I mean, the one thing that got to be said is the fact that, God forbid, you have a vaccine reaction, whether it be death or paralysis, seizure, whatever. I mean, I've seen some crazy things. Autism. You cannot sue the vaccine manufacturer. I mean, it just like they can't even stand behind their product. They can't stand behind their medicine. let's see, what else did I want to cover? Well, the other thing too, because as we're moving ahead, we got this war going on, and it's obviously taking a lot of attention away from this, which may be this may be perfect timing that I'm talking about this now, because now the attention is on something else. But we still need to talk about this just for our own understanding, the betterment of our own knowledge base and understanding, critical thinking, all of those things. We need to critically ask these questions and understand these things on the highest level. Because the thing is that, like, let's say we all agree 5G technology, 5G radiation, 5G toxicity, and of course, 6G is coming. The thing is that, you say, well, I didn't get sick, or, nothing happened to me. I got a 5G tower. I live in a building. We got 5G panels on top of our building. I live right next to a 5G tower. Nothing's happening to me. Yeah, I got a 5G cell phone. Well, here's the thing. We got to take it back to what I talked about a few weeks ago, and that's sensitivity. And, one of the things, what was the title of my discussion was you raise your health by raising your sensitivity. Right. And I said that basically the person who can often get sick, we can make a good argument that that person is maybe more healthy than the person that says, or that never gets sick. And of course, if let's say they eat, they eat the same diet, they have the same lifestyle habits. The person who is healthier is the person who is probably more reactive to the bad food, the lack of activity, etc. Versus the person who can smoke, drink, not exercise, not do anything productive, but then never gets sick. See, that person has been desensitized. Versus the person, like, if I walk into a smoke-filled room, I'm going to start coughing, right? My sensitivity is high, to smoke, because I'm not used to breathing smoke. But the person who smokes and who walks into a smoke-filled room and nothing happens, okay, is that person healthier than me? Of course not. He just happens to be desensitized. So now what's happening, if we bring this towards this radiation, we're all now becoming immune or desensitized to this radiation. And are we better for that? No, we are not better for that. We are worse off. As we get used to this radiation. So we have to do things to maintain our sensitivity. And I'm gonna get into the solutions, and then we'll take some questions if there's any questions. But yeah. And this is one of the last things before we talk about solutions. Because I don't think anyone believes, when we talk about the COVID, right? Just like in HIV, what's the one thing we could say that most people believe? Most people believe with HIV and now with COVID that it was what? Created in a lab. Well, I personally do not believe that. I don't believe that this is a bioweapon. Why do I believe that? Well, again, I felt like if the bioweapon was anything, first of all, I don't give them that much credit. If anything, if you think logically, if you think, if you think, if you think, if you think logically, if you think, if you think logically, 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 if you in order for them to put something out into the environment, it would have to be something that we all can be affected. So we think about the air we breathe. We think about, we all touch water at some point, whether we're drinking it or bathing, etc. So those are two things right there. That they put out some sort of germ or some sort of bioweapon into the atmosphere, into the environment. Of course, there are toxic chemicals. They use pesticides and all of these things, chemtrails. They're doing that now. They've been doing that. But is COVID, was it an actual COVID germ or virus? I don't believe that. If anything, all of these minds were working collectively together towards the vaccine. That was the bioweapon from the beginning. All they had to do was really set the stage in order for enough people to get sick and scared to take the vaccine. It's the same thing with HIV. There was no nothing they created in the lab. If anything, they're working on the medicine. And of course, you got to take a test because, of course, you're not showing any symptoms. And it shows that when we're looking at, and again, we know it was people who were sick already and who got pushed over the edge. Children weren't dying like that. And that's one of the things, even, as we talk about electricity and being electrical beings. See, one of the things that all of this Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, it's all toxic. And we're around Wi-Fi no matter where we go. When you pull out your phone and you try to connect, you see 5, 6, 10, 20 different networks. And we're all of that radiation, those EMFs is creating free radicals, which is going to create inflammation. And it's not the one cause, but it's a collection of causes. It's things collectively working together. Bad food, lack of exercise, poor attitude, bad thoughts. All of these things working together, lack of sunshine, not connecting with nature. And I didn't even get into earthing. I didn't get into earthing yet, because that's one of the, well, I'm going to get into earthing as far as that's one of the solutions. But we're not doing those things. We're disconnected from the earth. We're disconnected from nature. We're disconnected from our natural way. We're not doing the things, but then we want to point at one cause. There's never one cause for good health, so there's never one cause for bad health, let alone death. Obviously, if you get shot or, something fatal like that. But if you happen to have trouble breathing, for example, or you get a stroke or a heart attack, you built that over time. That just didn't happen overnight. Okay. All right, so solutions. I made my case. I hope I did a good job. Maybe I'm convincing, maybe not. I'll just continue to work on it, continue to study, continue to understand this better. But solutions, again, because we want to understand these things. And one of the reasons why I wanted to present this is because most people tend to be in the middle of the road. Meaning, like, there's people like me, for example, who know as truth that there's no virus. There was no HIV virus. There's no COVID virus. That this was all this was all hype. Yes, people died. People died of HIV/AIDS. But was it a virus? No. It was something else. Again, that allowed their natural immunity to break down, whether it was HIV drugs, whether it's COVID vaccine, or 5G radiation. Well, it's never one thing. It's never one thing. So, solutions. When we talk about solutions, there's a number of things. Obviously, one of the things that I always talk about is, first and foremost, you are what you eat. Your food is your medicine is your food. And, we talk about food, we obviously got to talk about the greatest healing practice of all, which is fasting. So it's not food that necessarily heals us. Food sustains us, builds us, and allows us to maintain us. But it's not food. There's no healing foods. It's when we stop eating foods, we give our body a digestive rest. I said earlier this week to one of my customers, you want to heal? Rest, don't digest. Rest, don't digest. So I got to remember that. So that's why I'm saying it. Rest, don't digest. That's the formula. This is just as simple as that. So we always got to make fasting a part of our lives. That naturally reduces inflammation. That increases the electricity in our body. See, all of this 5G radiation creates free radicals. The free radicals are positively charged substances that wreak havoc in our system, because the free radicals are looking for electrons, and if we don't have antioxidant electrically charged food or electrically charged system, we electrically charge ourselves by touching the earth. That's the other solution. We got to touch the earth. Like even now, I'm surrounded by I got phone, computer, I got another computer right here. I got the Wi-Fi. I got all of this radiation. However, I'm grounded. I'm earthy. This is one of the things y'all all got to invest in. If you live in a modern home, you probably have Wi-Fi. You no doubt have electricity. So it's a toxic environment. So you want to get one of these mats. I'm going to grab one of these mats over here. This is a grounding mat. This is usually you see here, you can go to earthing.com. And what you do is there's a thing that snaps on here, and then you plug it into your grounding port, and when you touch it, and I'll show y'all really quick how it works, because another thing you want to invest in is a body volt meter. It's a body volt meter, right? So you see right now that's 1 volt, but nothing is touching it. Well, I'm touching it now. So I'm not grounded right now. So right now it's about 3 volts. 3 volts going through my body. Now, if I grab my cell phone and I hold it next to me or on me, that number will double. At least double. It'll go up to 6, 7, maybe upwards to 10, especially if it's plugged in. Now, watch what happens when I touch the grounding mat. Now, I know you can't see me touching the grounding mat, but I'm telling you I'm touching the grounding mat. It goes down to almost 0. Almost 0. So what's happening? Well, right here, when I'm not touching the mat, it's all types of EMF going through me, right? And it's creating a positive charge, which ultimately is creating or setting the stage for bad health. for something that is going to happen, whether I get congested, whether I have pain, inflammation, all of these things that happen. But then when I touch the grounding mat, it goes down to near zero. So what's happening is that I'm getting electrons just by my feet touching this mat, skin to skin. Electrons is flooding my body, neutralizing this positive toxicity that's in the air. So body volt meter, you can get this off Amazon. One of the other things I was going to show, I know a lot of people, this is an EMF reader. I mean, it's really pointless to invest in one of these. They're not that expensive, but if you're concerned about you want to measure the EMF levels, I mean, I turn it on, it's going to just start beeping because it's toxic. It's toxic everywhere. I used to drive around with this in my car, and then everywhere I drove, it was just beeping, no matter what. So EMF reader. I think the body volt meter is a worthwhile investment because sometimes I think you can lose faith in these earthing products. I mean, it's very subtle. Especially if you have a high level of health, you're eating raw, you're fasting, you're exercising, you may not notice a difference with the earthing. Because you already, by doing these practices, you're already creating a high level of electricity in your body. All right. But this, to me, is almost necessary because the thing is, if you think about it, ideally, we should be earthing 24 hours a day, 24/7. You think about the people who is connected with nature, they're earthing all the time. They're earthing. I mean, they don't wear shoes. They're growing their own food. They live on the ground. That's another thing. A lot of y'all may be living in these high-rise buildings. It's like the higher you go up, the further you're disconnected. I sleep. I have a multi-level house, but I sleep in my basement. I'm close to the earth. And even in my basement, there's some areas of the floor which is grounded. Like I've tested it. So I like to be barefoot as much as possible. And then obviously the food. I mean, we got to talk about the food. We got to spend a few minutes talking the importance of eating electrical food. What is electrical food? Now, for those who follow the great ancestor, Dr. Sebi, I mean, he had his definition, right? Because basically hybridized food was not electrical, and that's false. Electrical food is food that has a negative charge. It has a negative charge where when it goes in, it can neutralize a free radical. A free radical is a positive charge. Free radicals are looking for a negative charge. And if there's no electrical food available to neutralize it, then it's going to attack your organs. It's going to attack your system. It's going to create pain. It's going to create issues. So the thing is that electrical food is food that has a negative charge. Well, what are some of those negatively charged foods? Well, my favorite, coconut water. Coconut water has potassium. Potassium is a negatively charged mineral. All right, it has that negative charge. I'll get into the chemistry. The negatively charged, but most all fruits and vegetables, basically. There's a table called the ORAC. I don't know exactly off the top of my head what that stands for, but you can Google it. There's an ORAC table. Now, it's not a perfect test. This was experiments done at Johns Hopkins, I believe. Again, not an institution that I respect for my own reasons. However, I think there's value to be gained from the experiments that they did. They found that a lot of spices have high ORAC levels, like cinnamon, sumac, turmeric. Like turmeric is a great example because turmeric, under Dr. Sebi, is considered a toxic hybrid food. Turmeric is an antioxidant, is negatively charged. It will reduce inflammation, as well as cinnamon. And then obviously most of your fruits, probably the highest fruits, I remember now, the highest fruits with the highest antioxidant electrical ability is your goji berries and your acai berries. So your acai and your goji berries, strong, highly nutritious, and you can say they're very dark, strong pigment. So that's what I look for. When I'm looking for food. Green leafy vegetables, same thing. I don't like I like kale, but I like the dinosaur kale, the lacinato kale. That's the darker kale. So again, it has a higher electrical ability. Electrical, not because it's not hybridized, it's electrical because of its actual charge that it's giving. And that's going to neutralize the positive charge EMFs that's all around us, that's creating the radiation poisoning. So yes, so those are some tips. Those are some things that we should do. We have to do. And, really to sum up the whole thing, when we look at COVID, and again, I group it right with HIV. There's a guy that I follow, he called it the Hiv Aids. Because the thing is like, you see such similarities in the fact that the virus goes away when we stop talking about it. It goes away when we stop talking about it, when the media stops talking about it. And it's like out of sight, out of mind. But the thing is like, there was talk about 5G, early during the pandemic. And I'm making a critical case to say that the people who we lost, from whatever whatever reason that they said or what actually happened, a likely culprit, along with pre-existing conditions, everything else that may have been going on, is radiation poisoning. Radiation poisoning. We're electrical beings. We're electrical before we're anything else. Before we're biological, chemical, we're electrical. And the goal is to get toxic metals into our body. The more toxic metals that get into our body, the more sicker we become, the more dependent we become on their false medicines, on their toxic substances. But, we're going to connect with nature, not just through the food. We're going to connect with the earth, get those free electrons, that negative charge. I mean, we're a battery. That's the one thing I want to say. We're a human battery. And batteries, what do they say? Alkaline battery. So we create that alkaline battery by eating antioxidant rich foods, alkaline, electrically charged foods that have electrical charge. Coconut water, acai berry, goji berry, your spices, even your nuts. A lot of your nuts are big time antioxidants. Pecans, almonds. This is our natural diet. When we connect with the earth, we're touching the earth. So if you want to get some, really the best shoe is your own foot. I mean, the thing is, like, our feet have become too sensitive. I mean, I talked about raising your sensitivity, right, as a measure of health, right? But our feet, we are too sensitive. It's one of the things. While I was in Panama, I took it. It was my daily ritual to walk on rocks every day. And I mean, after a few weeks, my feet toughened up. I mean, we got to challenge ourselves. We should be. I mean, look, I'm challenging y'all to challenge yourself. because I mean, it's like we've been wearing shoes since the beginning. It's creating bad structure. Our feet become too reliant on these shoes. When we're barefooted, it's like our feet have to become stronger. We use our hands, but we don't use our feet. And our feet, we have toes, we don't use our toes. The toes begin to atrophy because we're not using it. And you see, like, our elders, they start to have like one toe, like you can't even like spread the toes out. So these are the things that we got to do. And like I said, as we move ahead and we go forward with being the health seekers that we are, and understanding this thing the way we need to understand it. We need to understand that what was the likely cause of the things that happened, and then obviously what we need to do to arm ourselves, not only information wise, but with our daily practices and rituals. So with that being said, I'll spend a few more minutes here. We'll take some questions. If you have any questions, you can type them in. I'm here on Instagram, YouTube. If there's any questions, I know there was some comments that came in. I'll post these comments. Let's see here. Yeah, so the current vaccines, especially Moderna, uses lipid nanoparticles which use enzyme luciferase using the body's light pathway to implant graphene, yes, neurotoxins into the vaccine, I mean, look, all facts. I mean, I'm glad, look, I'm happy that the folks who are viewing this, who are watching this, are in flow, in agreement. Nothing I mean, it's great. Yes, I didn't even really get into, I don't have to really get into like the actual breakdown of the vaccine. We know it's toxic, we know it's poison, we know that they can't promise us any kind of immunity. I mean, when you can't even stand behind your product, to grant yourself immunity, from being sued, what kind of immunity can you promise me or my children, who you want to force to take the vaccine in order to attend school? I mean, how demonic is that? All right, so I saw your topic and came to make the offering of using red algae has shown effective against chemtrails. Okay, that's what's up. So for the IG crew, I can't, I don't know how to pronounce that, but basically it's a red algae that has shown to be effective against chemtrails. Another thing I'll say is, like, look, we gotta spend time. I mean, because it's like you go outside, it's a nice day, and then it just ruins it because you see a cloud of aluminum just ruin it, right? I think ultimately, I'm not a big fan of using food per se, or relying on a supplement in order to offset a toxin. Really, the only solution is to get away from the toxin itself. While this may be great, along with something like enzymes, is a supplement that I'm a fan of, but at the same time, enzymes have their limits, like anything else. The body is self-healing, and the thing is, like, we can't allow the body, we got to guard the body by not putting it on harm's way. And ultimately, if we live in cities, I mean, yeah, hey, we all got to make a living. We all, out here in this, trying to, whether it's, opportunity and things of that nature, but we got to really spend time away from these cities if we can. We all got to do the best we can. But no, great topic. Thank you for adding that. Um, Let's see. We have to prove it so we can make a legal case to stop corporations making excuses saying there's not science that supports 5G will have a negative effect on health. I mean, look, all of these guys, all of these corporations, all of these technology companies, Verizon, AT&T, Facebook, Google, YouTube, they're all in Pfizer, Moderna, they're all in bed with each other. I mean, look at this. Like, I didn't talk about, okay, because there was another question. What was the titles of the books that I displayed? Okay, so the first one is What Really Makes You Ill? What Really Makes You Ill? Goodbye Germ Theory. Contagion Myth. Contagion Myth, they actually, I don't know if this is available on Amazon. I think Amazon pulled this book because this book just came out. You can see they got coronavirus on the cover. So this is a new book. And I think they pulled it. I know when I got my copy, it was off Barnes and Noble. And then of course Earthing. I didn't talk about this, but it's a must. Actually, if you order an Earthing product off of earthing.com, they will send you this book. So no need to purchase it. If you order like some products, some mats, some sleeping mats, if anything, at the very minimum, you should be sleeping. That's your rest time. That's your time you're going to regenerate your body. You're going to do all your healing. You gotta be at you should be grounded when you're asleep. So this book here probably has the most. I mean, as you can see, it's pretty thick. So this is going to have the most information. I mean, they go back to the beginning, the history, like from the first vaccine. There's never been any vaccine that has cured or eradicated anything. I mean, these vaxxers want to talk about polio and smallpox, and I mean, polio. We know, folks was basically drinking DDT. So why don't you try drinking some DDT and see if it don't paralyze you? Why don't you put DDT, take a whiff of that and see what happened and blame it on a virus? And then, of course, they come out with the vaccine and then they take credit. So they've been controlling the narrative. The medical mafia, the Rockefellers, again, like I said, all of these companies, because the thing is that, like, one of the things, like Dr. Cowan, who wrote Contagion Myth, he had a video that went, I think it's been long removed from YouTube. But Dr. Cowan had talked about, he was giving a private lecture, and part of it had just got filmed and it got uploaded onto YouTube, and he went and he showed from the Spanish flu to all of the quote unquote epidemics that we've had, they've been in lockstep with the release of new technology. So when we had Spanish flu, that was the introduction of radio waves. And then there was an epidemic in the 40s. That was another release of new radioactive radiation poisoning. And then, of course, today. So do you think that they don't realize that this was a golden moment to introduce a pandemic, to introduce a vaccine via emergency use authorization, where it didn't have to go through the normal channels of protocol in order to get approved, where we're now creating basically a whole subset of our population as a genetic experiment? I mean, of course they had to know all of this. It was not coincidence that we had the introduction of 5G, radiation poisoning, and coronavirus, COVID. What else we got? All right, so y'all got the titles. Definitely check those books out, and there are more books. I mean, there's more research. So and again, there's good doctors out here. There's good scientists out here. They have not all been bought and sold. Unfortunately, most of them are cowards. That's just a fact. Most of them don't have no spine. They don't have no balls, for lack of a better word. Some do, and some have been imprisoned. Some have lost their life because of what they believe and what they know is truth. So I'll leave it there. I want to thank y'all for tuning in. Good session today. I'm not sure what I'm going to talk about next week, but I will see y'all next week, next Thursday, probably sometime between 7 and 9 p.m. I want to thank y'all. Thank y'all for tuning in, and I'll see y'all next week. Peace and love.